Talofa lava, this is Pacific Waves from RNZ Pacific. I'm Susanna Suisuiki. Coming up, PNG families are still trapped following floods and landslides in the highlands. Also,
so in a broad sense, both of them were charged for abuse of power.
Could this be the end of Frank Bainimarama's political career? And
this is to sell our products from the mamas, the sisters, the cousins, the families back home.
How handicrafts from the Solomon Islands are keeping cultural traditions alive. Recovery efforts are underway in Papua New Guinea's highlands and northern provinces Chimbu, which have experienced flooding and landslides over the last week. Fino Fonua has more.
The national paper reported last week that there were at least 23 deaths, but that number is likely to increase as reports of missing people continue to come through. Information out of the highlands is sketchy because of the remoteness of communities in the notoriously mountainous region. In the Gumene district, an entire family was buried in their home when heavy rains triggered a landslide. Gumene District Administrator Francis Diankil told RNZ Pacific that efforts are underway to locate and retrieve their bodies.
They were in the house, in their family house. They're still buried. Retrieving work cutting hopefully starts today to try to remove this landslip and try to locate the bodies.
Prime Minister James Marape told media that specialist teams have been dispatched to assist communities. Minister for Works and Highways Solon Misorim said the total cost of restoring infrastructure would cost over $15 million.
Our engineers are on the ground, some already on the ground. It's a natural disaster, so we cannot question that. We cannot do anything on that, but our job is to make sure when natural disaster happens, our job is to be there on time to make sure restore those services back to normal.
Food rationing, fallen bridges and blocked roads have been reported across the affected provinces. RNZ Pacific correspondent in Papua New Guinea, Scott Wyther, says 21 people have been confirmed dead in the highlands. He also said there were reports of thieves looting aid trucks.
2 bridges that I know of have been washed away in the Medang province, so traffic has been hindered. There are crews on the ground to try to get a temporary crossing up and running. There were a lot of trucks parked along the highway, and opportunists took advantage of them and looted them. They were basically carrying cargo in between Leh and Medang. In the initial stages, it was difficult to contain because the container trucks were opened and then people started taking stuff out of the trucks here.
Flooding and landslips are not uncommon when heavy rains occur in the highlands of Papua New Guinea. In 2020, a landslide engulfed an entire mining settlement, killing 12.
A Fijian professor on governance believes recent charges against Fiji's former leader, Frank Bainimarama, will end his political career. The former Prime Minister could face extended jail time after last week having his acquittal overturned on a charge of perverting the course of justice on a case dating back to 2019. Alicia Foon spoke with Adjunct Professor of Governance from the University of the South Pacific, Vijay Naidu, on what this means for Bainimarama's future.
There are a string of charges awaiting for him, but the one that is currently convicted for relates to the perversion of the course of justice regarding complaints by the University of the South Pacific unions to the police, whereby Bainimarama actually told the Commissioner of Police to put a stop to any further investigation. So he was charged for perverting justice, and Gilliho, the Commissioner of Police, was charged with abuse of power. So in a broad sense, both of them were charged for abuse of power. So initially, the magistrate Guamau had found them not guilty. This was appealed against by the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions. And subsequent to that, the Chief Justice actually found the two guilty. So the sentencing is to be done by the magistrate by the end of the month. And where the implications come regarding this particular conviction is that if they are sentenced to jail for 12 months or more, that means the end of Bainimarama's career as a politician, because he won't be able to stand in the coming general election and the one after that. And of course, Gilio, he can forget about returning ever to any public service employment. So this immediate sort of conviction and the sentencing will have serious implications. But there are other charges that will be taken to court in time while Bainimarama particularly is in jail. And there are charges awaiting him and Ayaz Sayed Qayyum, the former Attorney General as well. So, I think their futures don't look rosy at all.
Do you believe this is the end of Frank Bainimarama?
Yes, as a politician, certainly this is his end. He has got many, many worries, So, he will be a prisoner in the coming months. And I think it's not a good future ahead of him.
Bainimarama was the highest polling candidate in the last general election, and he could be, facing a maximum charge for perverting the course of justice, 5 years in prison, and an abuse of office charge carries a maximum sentence of 10 years. Some really serious charges ahead and a very uncertain future, but not one that looks very promising, Vijay.
Yeah, no, not at all. I think, they do have a good lawyer in Devanesh Sharma, and he will submit, significant mitigations, which may reduce the sentences. So I have some doubt whether the maximum penalties would be imposed. But certainly, period of 12 months minimum is likely, and that will end his political future.
What is thought to be only a small percentage of sorcery accusation-related violence, or SAV, is dealt with the courts. Most of the cases come before the village courts. For many Papua New Guineans, the village courts, of which there are over 1,800 in the country, are their only access to the formal legal sector. Academics from the PNG National Research Institute and the Australian National University have been looking at the pressures on the village courts and how they might be improved so they perform better when dealing with sorcery accusation cases. Don Wiseman spoke with Miranda Forsyth from the ANU's School of Regulation and Global Governance.
This matter of sorcery accusation-related violence does appear to be getting worse and worse across PNG, and many of the victims are taking their cases, or their cases are being taken to the village courts. Is it working for them?
That's right. So first of all, in terms of it getting worse and worse, we actually don't know. What we do know is that it is a major problem that isn't going away. There are hundreds of these cases every year, and we know that it is impacting upon different communities in different ways, and it's travelling into provinces that it never used to be in before. So, for example, in Enga, there weren't these kind of cases before about 2010. We also know that in some places where traditionally it was men who were being accused, then now women are being accused there. We also know that children are a growing group of victims of sorcery accusations. We can also say that it seems that some of the violence has changed as well. There's a kind of a sexualized violence that's often used when it's women who are being accused, that doesn't seem to have been around as prevalently in the past. So just to contextualize a little bit the claims that it's growing, of course, These crimes are very hidden. Often the whole community is complicit. And so people don't go to the police. They don't go to the court. And that's been the case forever, really. So we don't have any good data where we can say, oh, clearly these are the trends. But there's a lot more attention being paid to the issue now, which is fantastic. And so it certainly appears from the number of cases that are being reported in the newspapers and that are getting to the formal courts as well, that the numbers are growing. In terms of what happens when people go to see the village courts, what our research has found is that there are both challenges for the village court magistrates and there's also a lot of really creative responses.
It's clearly a challenging matter right across the country for officials at every level, but for these village magistrates working largely in isolation, it must be horrendously challenging.
Yes, particularly the village court magistrates who are not really clear themselves about what the law is, who might believe very strongly in sorcery. Those are big challenges for them. Often as well, it's a village court magistrate against the entire community. So it puts their lives at risk. And we've certainly documented a number of cases where village court magistrates have had their house burnt down. They've been chased out of the village when they've been trying to act on behalf of the accused and the accused family. So it's quite a precarious position. What we find is that the village court magistrates are most successful when they can act in coalition with, for example, a sympathetic police officer or a strong religious leader or a strong village leader, a community leader of some sort, when there is support from a strong family member as well. All of these things give credibility and help the village court magistrate to manage the case.
There are examples as well, though, aren't there, in your research of magistrates who clearly believe the accusations of sorcery and end up siding with the perpetrators?
Absolutely. So we've documented quite a number of those cases where the village court magistrates will require the person who's been accused to pay compensation to their accusers for having performed sorcery. So this is obviously a really problematic outcome for the person who's been accused, that not only have they been accused, they've gone through what can often be horrendous physical violence, but then the justice system actually condemns them further and requires them to pay compensation. So we've also documented some cases where the village court magistrates have also been involved in giving beating to the people who have been accused. So there are definitely those cases that are problematic. I mean, a number of those, however, were appealed to the higher courts, and the higher courts then gave out sentences and issued very clear instructions to say that that was inappropriate. So there is some degree of oversight by those higher level courts. However, there are certainly village court magistrates who are really trying to be creative in the way in which they're helping victims of SARV. They are, for example, issuing preventative orders. When there's suspicion and talk and gossip going around, then they're getting on the front foot and they're saying, we are warning everybody that you are not allowed to take any action against these particular people. That works better when they're able to rely upon a police officer, for example, to support them. We also find that some village court magistrates are able to use their mediating function to really understand what's going on at the heart of these accusations. Is it really about a fear of sorcery, or is it about somebody wanting to take another wife, for example? Or are there land disputes that are really at the heart of this? And they then proactively get involved in mediating those underlying tensions so that the accusations themselves don't develop any further.
Handicraft artisans from the Solomon Islands are calling for support to import products into New Zealand. The New Zealand market provides a way for locals to earn money to send back home. Tiana Haxton meets the woman behind the intricate crafts.
Fine woven fans, bags and colourful earrings were among the many crafts on sale. All items were handmade by communities from the western villages in the Solomon Islands and shipped to New Zealand to sell. Mary Wetara, who lives in Aotearoa, sells the crafts at local markets and festivals. She says a challenge they face is regarding how much they can import into the country at one time.
We are a very small country and we need to bring in this product to New Zealand so that we can support our people. So I would like to say if there's any way that we can bring more, because it's really hard to bring this product into New Zealand.
Wetara, who hails from the Laru province, sees events such as the Pacifica Festival provides exposure for their crafts and their people.
This is to sell our products from the mamas, the sisters, the cousins, the families back home, because they don't have an outlet where they can really sell their products. So it's really a good time to have a huge exposure about the Solomon Islands.
She says the ability to import more goods will go a long way in supporting the livelihoods of families back home.
It will be a huge change for them, mainly women in the village. They will be able to earn money to pay for school fees, and they will extend more of their craft.
The consistent selling of products in Aotearoa also supports the conservation of traditional arts and craft making.
Through this craft, the mothers pass on the tradition to the children. So no one will forget how to make this craft, especially the string bags, the necklaces, the fans. The young people, they learn and they pass it on.
Wetara and her family sell the Solomon Island crafts at the monthly Urbanesian markets and will be at the Manukau Melanesian market on the 23rd of April.
That's Pacific Waves for today. To listen back, head over to rnzi.com/programs. We're also on Spotify, Apple and iHeartRadio. From myself and the RNZ Pacific team, till 5:34.